I'm Lance, inventory software expert since 2006. Here at Brando Consulting, we help QuickBooks users find the right inventory software program. If it's an inventory software program we specialize in, we help them set it up and teach them how to use it. If it's not an inventory software program we specialize in, we put them in touch with someone who does specialize in it and will help them set it up and teach them how to use it. Here at Brando Consulting, we have discovered that it is absolutely essential to go through 5 steps in order for an implementation project to succeed for an IMS or an inventory software. Now, an implementation is different than onboarding. An onboarding project is more just setting up. It's more of a plug and play. So you set it up and there might be a little bit of training or self-training, self-taught. Implementations are a little more involved for IMS. IMS implementation projects usually range between 3 weeks to 3 months, $3,000 to $30,000. Onboarding projects for IMS or inventory management software usually are under $3,000. So we're not talking about the full-fledged ERP implementation projects, we're talking about IMS implementation projects. So there's 2 things that have to be done correctly in order for the implementation to succeed, or 2 things that need to be focused on: the setup of the software and the usage of the software. When we're talking about setup, we're talking about getting the data in there, the customers, the vendors, the bills of material if you're manufacturing, units of measures, unit measure conversions, account mapping with QuickBooks, configuration default settings. When we're talking about the usage of the software, we assign roles and responsibilities. We make best practice decisions and document those decisions. We train users and hold them accountable for the way they use the software. So the 5 steps that we will guide you through if you purchase our implementation services are these. We'll help you document the desired overall workflow. So not necessarily your current workflow, but what we want the workflow to be in order for you to have a successful experience with the software. We'll help you set up a Sandbox environment, basically the inventory software connected to QuickBooks. They don't have to be done in this order necessarily. We could set up a Sandbox first. However, what we found is the setup of the software often applies or usually relates to your workflow. How we set up the software will be determined by how you intend to use the software or how we'll help you decide how to use the software. And then for larger companies, we may need more specific instructions for the users. Instead of just an overall desired workflow, we may need individual SOP type documents, training type documents, if you will. Documents that has little screenshots, step-by-step instructions for each individual's specific role and responsibility. And once we've completed steps 1 through 3, we're ready for training and practice. Training and practice should strategically be scheduled right before go live. If training and practice happens too far or before you're ready to go live, too far ahead, then training will be forgotten before the go live date. So training and practice should always happen just a week or 2 before the go live date. And we should do everything we can to prepare for successful training and successful go live, which is step number 5, go live. So let's go through these 5 steps. Step 1, desired overall workflow. So we write down what the sales order entry is going to look like. How are sales going to be captured? If you're manufacturing, what is the work order entry going to be like? How will they be scheduled? Who's going to enter them? Will work orders be created by the sales orders? Or will a tool in the software be used to create the work orders? Sales orders may be created manually or they may be created automatically from an e-commerce software. There's a lot of different ways to enter sales orders and work orders, surprisingly. Transfer orders, if you have a hub and spoke type of environment or if you have multiple warehouses. Transfer orders may become part of your process. Purchase orders, how will purchase orders be created? Will you predefine healthy stock levels for your most popular parts? Will you be using a purchasing tool? Of course, let's learn how to use the purchasing tool in the software. The desired overall workflow step is also a train the trainer step. That's the best way we've found to successfully implement inventory software, is to first meet with the trainer or the key person, the champion, if you will. Train that person. Later on in step 4, that training will be performed by the trainer, the boots on the ground, the champion, the project manager that works for your company, and we will support and champion the champion. We will empower your key person and guide him through the entire implementation process, or her through the entire implementation process, to assure your success. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made during this desired overall workflow step. We make best practice decisions, document those decisions. Let's keep going. Purchase order fulfillment. How will you use the software? And this is where we start to recommend and explain and teach how to use the software, and based on what you've told us about your company, how we think is the best way for your company to use the software. So you bring your company's knowledge, you bring your knowledge of your company to us, and we bring our knowledge of the inventory software to you, and we mutually make best practice decisions on how you should use the software. How should you fulfill transfer orders? Will you have a mobile device, and will you do any scanning? Or is that overkill for your size of company? Maybe we'll just use the desktop or the browser screen, depending on which software you purchase. Work order fulfillment. Now we might start to get into picking and moving and how you have your warehouse organized. Sales order fulfillment, depending on your volume, the type of products that you have, and how they will be shipped out the door through LTL or FTL or parcel. This is where we start to discuss what shipping software you'll use to fulfill your orders. Maybe you're integrated with ShipStation or UPS or FedEx. This is where we talk about sales order fulfillment and what's the best way for your company to fulfill your orders. We talk about your AR and your AP management, how the inventory software will talk to QuickBooks. What will the data look like as it flows over to QuickBooks? This is probably one of the most important pieces to get right in order for the inventory software project to be successful. And that leads to setting up the sandbox. Setting up the sandbox will involve account mapping in QuickBooks. We may need to rethink how your chart of accounts is set up. When you set up your chart of accounts in QuickBooks, you probably weren't thinking about inventory software and how that inventory software will talk to QuickBooks. Now that the inventory software is starting to introduce itself into your world, we have to rethink how your chart of accounts should be set up to best work with that inventory software. And then we set up the inventory software with your data, understanding that later on when we go live, we will only use the list type data from the sandbox. We will not use the transactional type data from the sandbox. So we can put in all the hard work we need to get everything right here on this step. Get the costs right, the products right, the account mapping right, get the customers and their addresses right, the pricing rules right, set up locations or sites. We want all the list type data correct. And then when we go to practice with that list type data, we'll see if it works right. So once we start creating individual procedures or putting our overall workflow to the test by entering sales orders or actually testing the connection of the sales order to your BigCommerce, your Shopify, your WooCommerce, your Amazon or eBay or Etsy or EDI integrations or however that's flowing in, this is where we can test to see if the way we set up our product numbers and our part numbers and our units and measures are going to work correctly. And this is where we can adjust some of the setup we did. If we're uncertain about things like our bills of material setup or our product numbers, then back here on the setup sandbox step, we may want to set up just a small subset of data first, test it out, assure it's going to work, and then set up the rest of the data. Creating these workflow documents are typically a good idea for companies that are, let's say around the $10 million to $30 million range, $40 million range, or I should just say above that. I shouldn't put a cap on it because some companies that use IMS are doing up to 100 to 200 million, but usually the companies we work with in wholesale distribution, manufacturing, and e-commerce are in around the 10 to 15 million a year range and purchased 10 to 15, maybe 20, 25 users. So using those numbers as a measuring stick to size up your company and size up the project, if you're on the higher end of that, then desired individual procedures become worth the time and effort to assure a successful implementation. If you're under 10 million or under 5 million or under 5 users, then we might be able to get away without doing desired individual procedures and only doing the overall workflow document. These are just some examples of some individual procedural documents you could create: how to fulfill a sales order, how to fulfill a work order, how to use the mobile device or the screen, step-by-step, screenshot. When you work with us, we'll help you create custom training documents that you can use for training and hold the users accountable. Once the desired individual procedures are completed, that's a good time to schedule the go live day. At this point, we'll know when we'll be ready to go live because the only thing we have left to do is create a go live checklist and train the users and give them adequate time to practice. So now at this point, we're ready to schedule the go live date. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that come to me and say, "Hey Lance, we want to go live on this day." And I say, "That's great. However, do you want your go live to be successful? Because if you want it to be successful, we need to go through these 5 steps to assure success." And usually the response I get is, "Well, yes, we want it to be successful." And I say, "Okay, well then let's use that go live date as a goal. Don't tell anyone we're going to go live on that date. Let's just make it a goal between you and I, between the key person and myself. And let's try to achieve that goal. And let's do everything we can to prepare to meet that goal. But we're not going to know the exact day until at the end of step 3. Once we're done setting up the sandbox, the desired overall workflow, and the individual procedures, we're ready to use those individual procedural documents to train each user how to do each one of their roles. Train the sales reps on how to enter sales orders. Train the production managers on how to schedule and create work orders. Train the site managers on how to make transfer order requests. Train the procurement officer on the best way to use the software to make purchasing decisions. Train the receiving guys on the best way to receive purchase orders. Train the accounting person on the best way to enter the invoice into the inventory software. Train the pickers, the best way to pick, and train the shippers and the pickers how to use the software to record the fulfillment of customer orders. It's very important that we put processes and procedures in place that hold people accountable to successfully achieve inventory accuracy. If inventory isn't accurate, if it's not matching the inventory software, it's usually because someone is not recording. If everyone records what they did in a timely manner, the inventory software will match the physical count. And don't forget the practice portion of this training step. Step 4 is not just training, it's also practice. People need to build muscle memory, so when go live day comes, they'll remember what to do. So give out an assignment. I may decide what a good assignment would be for you or for your team. After we get to know each other, we'll have a good idea of what a good assignment will be. Well, maybe each person needs to do their individual responsibility 5 times. 10 times. Maybe it would be good for the purchasing person as part of the go live checklist to enter in all the outstanding purchase orders. Maybe the sales reps should enter in all the outstanding sales orders, and the production manager should enter in all the outstanding work orders. If we're synced with Shopify or BigCommerce or Magento or any of the e-commerce sites, discussing with and planning with the person who is in charge of that integration setup will be essential for a successful go live. So go live would be completing the checklist. Well, what's on the checklist? A lot of different things could be on the checklist. This checklist starts to evolve, and while we work together, we build a checklist, and whatever's not done on the checklist will be remaining to complete. We'll start to build a checklist throughout the project. What exactly needs to be on the checklist will be determined throughout the project and close to the end of the project. Now, some items of the checklist may include a physical count and creating a live inventory import, or it may be extracting the data if it's being tracked in another software or a spreadsheet. Of course, the checklist will include connecting to QuickBooks, to the live QuickBooks file. The checklist will absolutely involve creating the live inventory software account or the live inventory software. Different inventory software programs behave differently and have different features, so that process of creating the live file or the live subscription or the live account may be different. We'll want to install custom reports. I haven't mentioned custom reports throughout this video. Almost every implementation project we do requires a custom report or 2 or 3 to be successful. Of course, going live means we need to plug in to the live e-commerce sites or EDI integrations or custom integrations if there was a custom. And then finally, go live involves recording live transactions in the live file, receiving, picking, and shipping, but not until everything else is right and QuickBooks matches the inventory software program. I always like the QuickBooks asset account to begin with the value that matches the inventory asset value in the inventory software program. And of course, after we've gone live, we need to start holding the users accountable. We need to be sure that they are using the inventory software the way they were trained to use it. And if they have any concerns or questions, that all of those concerns and questions are addressed. So sort of follow-up support to make sure that we're doing things the way we decided would be best. And if you follow those 5 steps with an expert guide by your side, you will have a successful experience with your inventory software program. If, of course, it was the right one. As I said, it's got to be the right software, set up right, and used right in order to have a successful experience with your company and achieve all the goals you want the inventory software program to achieve, such as inventory accuracy, visibility, and avoiding overstock and stockouts. I'm Lance, inventory software expert since 2006. Brando Consulting is here to assure you have a successful experience with your inventory software. Please reach out to us if you need help with your project. Comment below, like if this was helpful. Be sure to subscribe to see each one of these steps in further detail on individual videos or to see training videos of some of the inventory software programs we specialize in.